Meet Henry, a spirited 74-year-old widower living in the sun-drenched hills of Santa Rosa, California. With silver hair, sharp eyes, and a gentle smile, Henry embodies the kind of quiet strength that inspires everyone around him. Each morning, as the golden light filters through his kitchen window, Henry begins his day with a sense of gratitude. He performs light stretches while soft jazz plays in the background, then ties his sneakers for a brisk walk along the oak-lined trails near his home. Neighbors often wave as he passes, some in admiration, others seeking the energy he seems to radiate so effortlessly. After his walk, Henry returns to his cozy cottage to enjoy a simple but nutritious breakfast. Oatmeal with berries, a hard-boiled egg, and a tall glass of lemon water. His companion, a loyal golden retriever named Buddy, waits patiently at his feet. Henry's days are full yet calm, reading on the porch, tending to his vegetable garden, and writing letters to his grandchildren. He values his independence and takes pride in maintaining his health. But recently, Henry has begun to notice a subtle but concerning change, one that begins in the most private of places, his bathroom. What does your bathroom routine say about how long you'll live after 70? It might sound surprising, but doctors say your urination habits can reveal early warning signs about your kidneys, heart, and overall aging health. Press 1 now to learn what your body is trying to tell you, just by how, when, and how often you pee. This simple, daily habit could hold powerful clues about your future. Your health after 70 isn't just about diet or exercise. It's also about what you notice in the quiet moments. Press 1 to get the answers you need. For weeks, Henry dismissed the strange shifts in his nightly routine. At first, it was just once, a quick trip to the bathroom around midnight. But soon, once turned into twice, then 3 times. His restful nights began to feel fractured, leaving him groggy and less enthusiastic about his early morning walks. Buddy, his ever-loyal retriever, noticed the change before anyone else. The dog no longer stirred with excitement at sunrise. Instead, he watched Henry shuffle to the kitchen, tired eyes and a sluggish gait replacing the vigor he was known for. Henry tried to rationalize it. "It's just part of getting older," he muttered one morning as he poured himself a cup of coffee he no longer enjoyed as much. But deep down, he knew better. Something wasn't right. The turning point came on a Tuesday. After his walk, Henry felt the familiar pressure to urinate. But standing over the toilet, he couldn't fully relieve himself. The sensation lingered long after he returned to his garden, distracting him while trimming his rose bushes. That evening, he looked at himself in the mirror. His reflection, once sharp and proud, looked uncertain. That night, the cycle repeated. Interrupted sleep, repeated trips to the bathroom, and a growing sense of unease. This time, though, there was something more. Discomfort and a dull ache in his lower abdomen. It wasn't just a nuisance anymore. It was interfering with his life. Henry sat on the edge of his bed, hands clasped tightly. He remembered his wife, Evelyn, who had always pushed him to listen to his body, to not shrug off signs that something might be wrong. She used to say, "The body whispers before it screams." He finally listened. The next morning, Henry made a call to his doctor. The receptionist recognized his voice. It had been over a year since his last visit. "We'll get you in this week," she said kindly. That one phone call shifted something inside him. For the first time in weeks, he felt like he was doing something instead of just enduring. At the appointment, his doctor listened carefully as Henry described his symptoms. Frequent nighttime urination, difficulty emptying his bladder, and a recent onset of discomfort. Tests were scheduled, including a urinalysis and ultrasound. The possibility of benign prostatic hyperplasia, BPH, was mentioned, along with other conditions that could affect men his age. Henry didn't feel scared. He felt prepared, relieved even. For once, he wasn't ignoring his body. He was responding to it. A few days after his doctor's visit, Henry received a call that would shake him more than he expected. "Mr. Bennett," the nurse said, her tone warm but serious, "your test shows signs of an enlarged prostate, and there's also evidence of a mild kidney strain. We'd like you to come in for further evaluation." Henry sat in silence, staring at the receiver long after the call ended. Kidney strain? He had always seen himself as healthy, resilient, even invincible in a quiet way. That sense of security had just cracked. That night he tossed and turned in bed, not because of the usual bathroom trips, but because of fear, real, tangible fear. He remembered Evelyn's last weeks, how quickly things can change when you ignore the early signs. He thought of his daughter Emily and her young kids who loved visiting Grandpa's garden. Would he still be around to see them grow? A few days later, Henry sat in the sterile, white office of a urologist. The specialist explained that although the results weren't life-threatening yet, they showed signs that required immediate lifestyle adjustments and possibly medication. There was also a warning: if left untreated, the pressure on his kidneys could lead to chronic damage. For the first time, Henry truly felt the weight of aging. It wasn't about gray hair or slower steps. It was about silent battles within the body, invisible yet dangerous. As he walked out of the clinic, he passed by a younger man holding a cane and an older gentleman in a wheelchair. Henry suddenly realized how easily the decline could happen. It terrified him, but it also lit a fire inside him. Later that evening, while trimming basil in his garden, Henry had a moment of clarity. The scent of fresh herbs filled the air, and the breeze tugged gently at his flannel shirt. This wasn't the end. It was a warning, yes, but also a second chance. He took a deep breath, called Emily, and told her everything. "Dad," she said, "thank you for not hiding this. We'll get through it together." That moment changed everything. Henry no longer saw his urination issues as an inconvenience. He now saw them as life's subtle way of saying, "Pay attention." And for the first time in a long time, he was truly listening. In the days following his diagnosis, Henry found himself reflecting more deeply than he had in years. What began as a simple annoyance, those nightly trips to the bathroom, had grown into something far more profound, a wake-up call. And for the first time in a long while, he wasn't taking his body for granted. Gone were the days of brushing off warning signs with casual shrugs. Henry began keeping a journal, not just of symptoms, but of thoughts, meals, water intake, and sleep patterns. What he initially saw as a weakness, he now recognized as a strength, the power to pay attention. He also started reading real medical journals, health articles, and forums for men his age. It opened his eyes. He wasn't alone. So many men remain silent about these issues out of pride or fear. But Henry saw it differently now. There was no shame in change, only in ignoring it. One morning, after waking up only once during the night, a small victory, Henry stood in front of the mirror. His reflection hadn't changed, but his perspective had. This wasn't about avoiding aging. It was about meeting it with wisdom, action, and courage. He changed his diet: less red meat, more fiber, more water. He cut back on his morning coffee and swapped it for herbal tea. He picked up yoga at the local senior center, learning breathing techniques and gentle stretches that made his body feel alive again. It wasn't just about fixing the problem. It was about building a life that supported long-term health. Henry's friends noticed. "You're glowing," his neighbor Janet said one morning as they passed each other on their respective walks. "What's your secret?" Henry smiled. "Listening," he said. "Really listening." But perhaps the biggest shift wasn't physical, it was emotional. Henry no longer saw health issues as interruptions to life. He saw them as conversations with his body, signals, warnings, opportunities. And with every healthy meal, every glass of water, every mindful breath, he responded with love, care, and intention. Henry didn't feel old anymore, not in a negative sense. He felt aware, empowered, and most of all, hopeful. Because in listening to the whispers of his body, he was learning how to live better, not just longer. With each passing week, Henry began to feel the subtle rewards of his new lifestyle. His energy improved, his sleep became deeper, his mind, once fogged by fatigue, now felt clear and focused. But perhaps the most unexpected reward was the new sense of purpose that began to grow within him. One afternoon, while attending a wellness seminar at the local community center, Henry found himself surrounded by men and women much like himself. People who had once felt confused, overwhelmed, or even ashamed about their health concerns. As he listened to a speaker explain the importance of early detection in urinary health, he couldn't help but think, what if someone had told me this earlier? That question lingered. After the session, Henry introduced himself to the center's coordinator and offered to start a small peer group. Just a casual circle for seniors to talk openly about their health experiences. "No pressure, no judgment," he said. "Just a safe space to share." The coordinator smiled and said, "That's exactly what we need." Within a month, the listening circle was born. Every Thursday morning, a small group of seniors gathered in a sunlit room with warm coffee and open hearts. They talked about everything, from medications and diet changes to loneliness, fears, and small victories. And Henry, always the quiet gardener, found himself blooming into something more, a guide, a voice of empathy and strength. The group became more than just a place to talk. It became a place to heal. Stories that were once held back with shame were now spoken with courage. And Henry? He realized that by facing his own struggles, he had unlocked a gift he never expected, the ability to help others do the same. What started as a concern over disrupted sleep had led him to a new chapter, one where vulnerability became power, and where sharing became medicine. He still had his garden, his walks, and Buddy's loyal companionship. But now he also had a purpose that reached far beyond his backyard. His Thursday mornings weren't just for himself. They were for the community, for connection, and for life itself. Henry had learned that the body may age, but the spirit can deepen. And sometimes, from life's most uncomfortable signals, the greatest opportunities can grow. As weeks turned into months, the changes in Henry weren't just physical, they were transformational. He no longer simply moved through his days, he engaged with them. Each morning walk felt more vibrant, every conversation more meaningful. He wasn't just surviving, he was thriving, and for the first time in years, he was leading a life filled with intention. His confidence returned in quiet, steady waves. He became the kind of man who read nutrition labels carefully, who packed an extra bottle of water on long walks, and who reminded his peers in the listening circle to schedule their checkups. What began as a health scare had evolved into a life philosophy, Be aware, be proactive, be kind to yourself. But Henry's growth wasn't just in what he did, it was in how he saw the world. He began volunteering twice a week at the senior center, helping others navigate the same fears he once carried alone. He worked with local health providers to organize educational sessions for older adults, demystifying topics like urinary health, nutrition, and preventive care. He wasn't afraid to speak openly anymore. In fact, he embraced it. "If one person gets help because I shared my story," he often said, "then it was worth it." Family life changed too. Emily visited more often, bringing the grandkids, who now called the vegetable patch Grandpa's jungle. They giggled as Henry showed them how to water the tomatoes and pull weeds. These small moments, muddy knees, sticky fingers, and wide-eyed questions, became Henry's new markers of joy. One evening, after a particularly full day, Henry sat on his porch, Buddy curled at his feet, the sky glowing with the last hues of sunset. He thought about how different things might have been if he had ignored those early warning signs, if he had continued pushing through the discomfort, if he had stayed silent. But he didn't. He had chosen to listen, to act, and to grow, not despite aging, but because of it. Henry had come to understand something powerful. Growing older doesn't mean growing weaker, it means growing wiser. And the strength he now carried wasn't in muscle or youth, it was in clarity, compassion, and connection. And in that quiet moment on the porch, Henry realized he was exactly where he was meant to be. There was a quiet beauty in the way Henry's life had unfolded, like the slow bloom of a perennial flower, returning stronger each season. What began as a disruption in his nightly routine had become a catalyst for deeper awareness, stronger connections, and a more meaningful life. One bright Sunday morning, the community center hosted a wellness fair, and Henry was invited to speak. At first, he hesitated. He was just a retired man who liked gardening and long walks. But the moment he stepped up to the microphone, the room grew still. He looked out at the crowd, faces of all ages, some curious, others quietly anxious. And then he spoke from the heart. "I used to ignore the signs," he began. "I thought waking up at night or feeling discomfort was just a part of growing old. I thought, if I don't talk about it, maybe it'll go away." A soft murmur of recognition moved through the crowd. "But what I've learned," he continued, "is that listening to your body isn't weakness, it's wisdom, it's strength. And taking care of yourself doesn't mean you're fragile, it means you're brave enough to stay strong." There was silence for a moment, then applause, genuine and warm. People lined up afterward just to thank him, to ask questions, or to say they finally felt understood. That day, Henry didn't just share his story, he sparked change. Back home, he placed the small speaker's badge he was given next to a photo of Evelyn. "You were right," he whispered, smiling. "The body whispers before it screams." The garden behind his house had never looked greener. The tomato vines curled higher than ever. The flowers bloomed with abandon, and Buddy barked playfully at butterflies. Life wasn't perfect, but it was full. It was honest. Henry had stepped into a chapter that many feared, old age. But instead of shrinking, he had expanded. He had grown into a man who listened, who shared, who loved more deeply than ever before. And as he sipped his tea on the porch, with the sunset kissing the edges of the sky, he felt something profound: peace. Not because everything was certain, but because he knew, without a doubt, he was living fully. And that, he realized, is how you add life to your years. Henry's journey teaches us a timeless truth. Our bodies speak to us. We simply have to listen. Aging doesn't begin with wrinkles or gray hair. It begins with ignoring the gentle whispers of change. In Henry's case, something as routine as urination turned out to be a vital message. A message not of decline, but of awareness, resilience, and transformation. What we often perceive as inconveniences, frequent bathroom trips, disrupted sleep, can actually be life-saving cues. Ignoring them may feel easier in the short term, but embracing them opens the door to healing, connection, and new purpose. Henry's story is not just about bladder health or growing old. It's about owning your health, facing discomfort with courage, and inspiring others by being honest and proactive. Listening saved his quality of life, and through that, he discovered how to live longer and better. Start by paying attention to your body's routine, especially changes in urination, energy levels, or sleep. Keep a simple journal to track frequency, hydration, and any unusual discomfort. Don't normalize ongoing symptoms as just aging. Stay hydrated, eat a fiber-rich diet, and include light exercise like walking or yoga to support urinary and kidney health. Schedule annual checkups and never hesitate to bring up embarrassing topics with your doctor. They could reveal critical insights. Finally, talk to someone. Share your concerns with family, friends, or support groups. Henry's strength came not just from action, but from connection. You don't have to face aging alone. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and share with your friends. Your support keeps these stories alive. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new episode. And if today's story touched your heart, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Take care, stay well, and see you in the next story.